Thank you very much, Rita. Thank you also, Alden. And I would like also to say congratulations to the organizers. This digital Læringsfestivalen is working really well. Thank you. So the aim of my presentation today is to share briefly the experience that my colleague docent Gerd, Engelsrud and I have had this semester when implementing a new teaching strategy, which tries to combine elements of active learning and traditional lecture. I will now share my screen. Yeah, is it working? Yeah, okay. Gerd and I, we are both legal scholars. We teach law, and the course concerned here is the course in labor law, Arbeidsrett, which is a part of the bachelor program in administration and leadership in the public sector, offered at Oslo Met. We have around 100 students, maybe something more, and most of these students are in the first year of bachelor. Let's say that the idea of this experiment, this teaching strategy that we have worked on, derives from the goal that we have as legal scholars to try to enhance the development of legal skills when we teach students, law to students. So we would like them to learn certain skills related to the legal method. So for example, finding legal problems in practical cases, finding, retrieving and interpreting legal sources like laws, etc., applying these laws and so on. This goal that we have can be better achieved with the strategy of increasing the use of active learning. So that's why that's what we have been trying to do. And this is the base. This is goal and the strategy are, of course, the basis of our work with this group teaching in plenary. This is what we have done so far until last year in order to combine active learning and traditional lecture. This is what we used to do. So this in particular refers to the Arbeidsrett last year. We divided the teaching activities into two different moments. So on one hand, we had traditional lectures, several hours during the semester of traditional lectures in the exact room that you can see in this picture. So this was the room. And during these traditional sessions, we tried to also implement some elements of active learning. So for example, using clickers. In this case, last year we used Socrative, for example. On the other hand, we also tried to organize sessions of Gruppundervisning, group teaching, where the students divided into groups of 10 or 15, more or less, could work together and discuss practical exercises. Normally, these are practical cases to be solved from the legal perspective. Last year, for example, I had 2 sessions throughout the semester in spring with 8 groups for every session, which means that every student could have the whole semester something about 4 hours in total for the group teaching. So active learning in groups, discussions in groups, while normal lectures throughout the semester from January to May. This has worked quite well, and students always seem satisfied about this, appreciated this strategy. But two challenges that we had is that, first of all, only few sessions of group teaching are possible, because dividing 100 students or more into groups of 10 or 15 means that we have to repeat the session several times. So like last year, for example, only 2 sessions were possible. And also another challenge connected to these is that students need time to understand how they are supposed to participate and engage in discussions with peers, especially because we're talking about students that are in the first year of a bachelor. So of course, in the first session, they are learning what to do, and then maybe in the second, it works. So it's This is why Gerd and I have thought that we could try to take advantage of the plenum, of the plenary, and maybe implement this type of activities in the plenary. That's why we refer to this attempt as Gruppenuntervisning Plenum, group teaching in plenary. This is what we have done this year. Basically, we divided the students, and on average, we had around 70 or 80 students in class. So high attendance compared to the number of students that are enrolled. And we divided these students in groups of 6. Now the picture shows just 5 groups, but in reality we had between 12 and 14 groups of 5 or 6 students each group. These groups were all together in the same classroom. I will show the classroom later in the next slide, in another slide. So it was a plenary, it was a plenum. So everybody worked together, and we counted this activity as a plenum session. The difference being that we adopted the same strategy we were using in Gruppenuntervisning, that is to say, the use of exercises to approach the topics. We were both always present in class. It's some exceptions, but normally we were both of us in class every time to enhance the interaction with the students. And we used a digital tool, which is in this case Mentimeter, to interact with the groups working on the same exercises. So what we would do normally would be to introduce a topic, whatever topic of Arbeitsrat, with a case, an exercise that they were supposed to, students were supposed to solve group per group. So every group was supposed to solve that exercise. In the beginning of the semester, we started asking with Mentimeter general questions, step by step. We said step by step, meaning first let's find the problems, then let's find the sources, then let's apply. What's the solution? Are there several solutions possible? How do we interpret these, etc. Towards the end, we started to leave them more independent, more independence. So we focus less on specific questions and try to make them solve the exercises. But this, of course, varied also during the semester. The students would answer with using Mentimeter. Mentimeter, for those who are not familiar, is a clicker. So basically, you have in the screens the questions, and with their phone or the computer, they can answer. And each group had one computer connected to Mentimeter and could answer our questions. The answers, we see the answers all in the screen all together, so we could also give feedback straight away. So we could see all the answers, group A, group B, group C, etc., and we could give feedback. This is the approach that we adopted. Explain briefly. Some advantages of this approach is, of course, it's problem-based learning, which means that they're working with exercises, and that, of course, is beneficial. There's plenty of literature on that. My experience is that at a certain point, the students became more familiar with how to solve legal problems. So, which would be an indicator that actually the strategy could work to make them familiar with the problems. Another benefit is the fact that we can increase the amount of feedback that we provide the students, and we can do that straight away, meaning that they answer, and 1 minute after that, we are giving feedback. We are saying what could be improved, what were actually good in their answers, etc. Normally feedback comes later, right? So we receive exercises, we correct them, we read them, and after a few weeks or a few days, we give feedback. In this case, feedback is given straight away. Feedback is also we also experienced once the possibility of peer review feedback. So students that were commenting to each other, but that we did with minor group, with smaller groups, not in plenary, as an experiment. This strategy, we believe, could improve feedback literacy. So students start to understand better, especially in the first year, what they're supposed to do with the feedback we give. And that, I believe, was a positive aspect. But the main thing about this, and that's because the name of the presentation, right, it's Gruppenundervisning Plenum, is the fact that this model is quite dynamic, considering that we can go from exercise to traditional explanation in the classroom basically without losing any time. We can decide what to do in the moment, and we can also use the answers that the students were giving us to decide if we should focus more in certain topics that maybe they had more problems with, or not. We can go for maybe some things we can also explain less in depth because it seems that they are actually familiar with the topics already. So it's quite dynamic. So from that aspect, we think it worked because it's a hybrid model in a way. It's active learning, it's group teaching, but it's also a plenary, and that's actually the room we used. And you can see that in this room we can have groups, as it's in the picture, but also it can work also as a normal traditional lecture. I mentioned Mentimeter. We use this tool to adopt this strategy, and actually Mentimeter was quite good because it allows to combine PowerPoint slides, which means traditional lecture where you explain something, with other slides with questions and answers, and also answers. So in the same presentation, when we prepare the lecture beforehand, we already think that it's hybrid and it's dynamic. So from traditional to exercises without losing any time, because it's in the same room at the same time, and it's all prepared beforehand. It's quite effective to go from group discussions to traditional explanation. But we also experienced, and then I am finished, it's the last slide. We also experienced, however, some challenges, which is going to be solving these challenges is going to be our goal for next year, working with this. First of all, the same use of Mentimeter is beneficial, but can also, in a way, create problems when we feel obliged to use Mentimeter because we are doing that. So it's a flexible tool, but sometimes we feel obliged to do something and it can limit us in a way. So we feel kind of bound by the tool per se. Another problem is, of course, finding the right balance between traditional lecture and active learning, according also to what the students experience, because some of them might prefer more traditional undervisning, others might prefer more exercises. So difficult to find the balance. And another practical problem that we had is the physical environment, the room per se. As you saw in the last picture, in that room, of course, that room was used also for traditional lecture by other teachers. So we always had to prepare the room beforehand, which take, of course, time, and it's time consuming and time in a way. So these are the challenges that we have to work on. And that's it.